Good afternoon.
WFM 91.7, a very, very beautiful Wednesday morning. It's the 4th day in the month of August 2021, and this is The Big Question. My name is Daniela Dodger, and of course, Kimberly is here.
Hi, Daniel.
Good to have you.
Yeah.
Good to have you join us on the radio today. Welcome to Women Radio 91.
Thank you so much. My first time. Oh my God.
Okay. All right. Still in the spirit of breastfeeding, we are taking our time on the radio to basically raise a lot of awareness on the importance of breastfeeding. This week, the 1st of August to the 7th of August, in over 120 countries across the world, the celebration of the annual World Breastfeeding Week is on. And the World Health Organization stated that breastfeeding is one of the most effective ways to ensure child health and survival. So this year, the theme for breastfeeding is Protect Breastfeeding, a shared responsibility. Breastfeeding, a shared responsibility. And the World Breastfeeding Week is celebrated to encourage breastfeeding and improve the health of babies around the world. The history of the week long commemoration dates back to the 1900s when the World Health Organization and the United Nations International Children Emergency Fund created an Innocenti Declaration to promote and support breastfeeding. Later in 1991, to execute the UNICEF and the World Health Organization goal, an association was formed called the World Association of Breastfeeding Action. In 1992, a whole week was dedicated to promote the campaign. And breastfeeding is also known as nursing. It is the best way to provide young infants with the essential nutrient required for growth and development. And the World Health Organization says that breastfeeding is the ideal food for infant. In fact, it is said to be the safest, clean, and acts as the first vaccine that babies get in terms of protection against any form of common childhood illnesses. And according to the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare Government, the benefit of breastfeeding in babies are so many, and they have taken to different social media platforms, and that's why we're using the radio as a means this morning to talk about this information on World Breastfeeding. We are taking our time this morning to talk about this, and we would not be doing this alone. We have the opportunity of having Florence Oladotun-Amoo in the studio with us. She's an educational consultant, a marriage counselor, a certified emotional health therapist, a speaker. She speaks on women and youth. I'm really, really happy to have her come into the studio this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Daniel. Good morning, Kimberly.
Good morning.
WFM, thank you once again for having me, and good morning, listeners.
Good to have you join us. So this morning we want to hear from a lot of mothers, and also we want to hear from Florence this morning when it comes to the issue of breastfeeding. So Florence is going to be guiding us through this conversation as much as possible. Also with Kimberly, I'm just here to navigate the show as much. I don't really know much about it. This is me being a man. But the theme for this year is what has inspired this conversation, because it says breastfeeding is shared responsibility. So it's not just the mother that is involved now or the woman breastfeeding. It's a collective responsibility for us all to take. So let me start off with Florence. Do you remember your first experience as a mother, and what it was like breastfeeding your child?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. That's an experience I will never forget, because it's a one-in-a-lifetime experience. It was in 1997 that I had my first child. And of course, I look forward to having him. My mom came around as we were approaching the due date. Okay. And being a nurse midwife, she, the way mothers would talk to their daughters, but now more like a professional. And she enumerated the benefits of breastfeeding. And from that moment, I made up my mind that I was going to give it my best shot. I'm sure we'll still get to the benefits as we go on in the program. But close to the delivery date, there was a snag. The doctor said I was going to have an elective CS because my baby was breech and it was big. And my first concern was, with a CS, how would I breastfeed? And the doctor assured me that, okay, since that's your decision, we'll work around it. And to the glory of God, after I came round, I was able to breastfeed my baby. And the moment they put him to the breast, I was still, lying down with drip and all that. And he began to suckle, and I wondered, who taught him? That was the question I asked the nurses. Who teaches babies to suckle? And he said it's an innate thing. That is the way God made it. And from there, we started, and I did exclusive breastfeeding. It was a personal decision. Not once did I bottle feed him. Of course, I bought feeding bottles like every expectant mother would. Yes. I had to give them out much later. So when it was a couple of months, I now introduced cereal with cup and bowl. I never used feeding bottle for him. And that helped him to gradually transit into taking adult food.
Yeah.
You know, homemade they call ogi, begiri. Are you Yoruba? Maybe you don't. Okay.
Oh, yeah, I know
A
begiri.
wedu with lots of fish and
Yes.
all that.
Yeah.
And we went on, and I made up my mind I wouldn't stop until he walked.
So you were breastfeeding
I
till
was
he was
breastfeeding
working.
him, and to the glory of God, he walked before he was 1. So on his first birthday, he was still sucking. It was funny because he would run around, you know, come back and and I remember a friend of mine was laughing at me. Yeah, Arauko, you're a bushwoman, you're still and I said it didn't matter to me what she felt. I knew I had a goal.
Yeah.
And I did it for 1 year and 6 weeks.
1 year and 6 weeks.
I didn't meet the WHO recommendation of 2 years, but I think I did my bit.
That is a lot. Even WHO
Yes,
is
it's
saying
a lot.
that 6 months exclusively for 6 months. But you did a year and 6
6
weeks.
weeks.
You deserve a round of
Sorry,
applause.
were you adding baby food, or you were just breastfeeding like
For
that?
the first 6 months, no baby food.
Okay.
It was just breast milk. At 6 months, I started with cereal. Then it was nutrient. I don't know what they do now, what they give children now. It was nutrient. So maybe like once or twice a day, more of like 80% breast milk,
Yeah.
20% cereal. Like 6 months, 7 months, we now began ECHO, this pap, local pap, golden morn, and so on.
And some
Before it
other-
was 9
yeah.
months, he was eating adult food. So I never for once gave him formula. I don't want to spoil anybody's.
Yeah, I get
business.
you. I get you. We even
I
have
never.
there's a
Not
lot of
once.
there's a lot of conversation right
Yes,
now
yes,
because a lot of
there's
these baby
formula.
food factories or the baby food industry are looking for, they are pushing a lot of agenda right now in encouraging mothers to give their babies all of this substitute for breast milk. So thank you so much for sharing that with us this morning on The Big Question. And we're still here on The Big Question. Feel free to call us up this morning on 07000 917 917 to be part of The Big Question. If you're a mother, you have had the breastfeeding experience before, I'd love to hear your story on what was your first experience like. How did it feel like? And let me come back to you, Florence. How did that experience impact motherhood for you?
Oh, like I said, it's a one in a lifetime experience. It promoted bonding for me and my son. You know, typically when you are breastfeeding, if you ever watch a baby that is being breastfed, when the baby's eyes are not shut, maybe he's not dozing, his eyes are open.
Yes.
He's looking straight into the eyes of the mother. So he's looking at the mother, staring at the mother. The baby smells the mother. The baby hears the mother's voice. You are breastfeeding, you are talking to some other people. Your baby is listening to you. So there's a connection. There's a skin-to-skin contact. You give warmth to the baby. As you hold the baby to suckle, you give warmth to the baby. So that bonding is just natural. And I think women who don't do that, they are maybe robbing themselves. Let me put it that way.
You know, I was even going to ask
of that
you.
bonding. And it goes on for life. Myself and my son are extremely close. He's 24 plus now. We are extremely close. And I'm sure that bonding began from that moment. And we're sustaining by the grace of God.
Okay.
You
Kimberly.
know, I have a lot of friends that say they don't want to breastfeed for the fact that the boobs will fall. You know, it's a, I don't know, you like, let me borrow the word. You're saying it's a trend. And I always tell them that this trend of you guys saying you don't want to breastfeed, you're depriving this baby and yourself of this bond. But I want to hear further from you what you really think. Like if you had, I believe you have a daughter.
No, I don't.
Oh, okay.
I
But
have
let's
a
say you have nieces and
Okay,
people around you
yeah.
that, you know, are potential mothers. What would you have to say to them?
Interesting. You know, sometimes ago, my pastor, Pastor Bakari of the Citadel Global Community Church, did a series of teachings on chances, choices, and consequences. Every day of our lives, we are confronted with chances. So when a woman is pregnant or when she has a baby, she has a chance. Now, from that chance, you have a choice. Am I going to breastfeed? Am I going to bottle feed? Whichever way, whichever one you choose, there are consequences. So if you choose to breastfeed, there are benefits. If you choose not to, there are also consequences. So now, if a woman chooses not to breastfeed because the breast will sag, in physics, I remember one law, the law of gravity. It says whatever goes up will come down. When a child, a young girl reaches puberty, you know, the breasts are erect up until maybe 16, 18, 20. Show me a woman, 50-year-old, 60, 70, who has never breastfed and the breasts are still erect. I don't think you would have that. So the point I'm making is whether you breastfeed or not, nature will take its course. Your breasts will sag.
True.
So if they sag for the right reasons, why not?
Why not?
At least you have gained something, you have passed on something, and that's something I don't think any woman should toy with. Yeah.
The Big Question, Women Radio 91.7, 27 minutes past 9. We have Florence Oladotun-Amoo here. She's a wonderful individual here speaking to us on breastfeeding. We're talking Women Talk Breastfeeding on the radio. And the theme for the year, for this week, is Breastfeeding, a Shared Responsibility. I want to find out from you, before you had that experience, were there any myths you heard about breastfeeding?
Well, before, after, even till date, there are still myths. What's a myth? A myth or myths are generally misleading and confusing pieces of information. Sometimes they are true, but when they are true, they are exaggerated. And of course, many times they are not true. So that's the definition of a myth. Myths surrounding breastfeeding, all kinds of things that we hear. And the idea behind myths is they want people to be discouraged from doing certain things. So they want to make it look like, oh, don't go there. One of them is this sagging thing that you just talked about. It's a myth. I mean, it's not a myth because it's actually the truth, but it's exaggerated. Let me talk about a few other ones that I've heard about. Some people say, oh, when you breastfeed a baby, the baby is too clingy. The baby is almost, following you everywhere. But for God's sake, we want to promote bonding. Mothers and children are not supposed to be aliens. Mothers are not supposed to be estranged from their children. So if breastfeeding will promote bonding with your children, why is it a problem? Some women also say, oh, I can't breastfeed because I don't have sufficient milk. I'm not a doctor, but I think that God in his infinite wisdom, who has made it possible for a woman to be pregnant, will ensure that that woman has milk. Because the period of pregnancy actually prepares a woman for lactation. So when you say you don't have sufficient milk, what our mothers did then, they will give you ogi, pap, hot pap. They will massage your body, use towel and hot water, massage your breasts. Before you say Jack Robinson, those breasts will flow with milk. So I think these are things that people are just, exaggerating. Some people say, oh, my breast will leak and the milk will soil my dress. Of course, there are breast pads. You can use things that will help protect the leakage and all that. So what I'm saying in essence is, whatever these myths are, in my opinion, they're not sufficient to take away the benefits of breastfeeding.
This is beautiful.
Yeah, but now if one must breastfeed now, still on sagging, because, as a young lady, we have to be sure that the boobs will be intact for a long time. As much as nature will most likely take its course when you're older, are there ways that, one can breastfeed to avoid excessive sagging? Because I've heard some people say you can put the pillow under the head of the baby closer to your breast. Because some now you see that when a woman, for those that hawk, like when you're for traders, you see that maybe the baby will be at the back. They will now stretch the breast from the side. The baby will be sucking from the back to the front. That one too, they say can speed up the whole sagging thing. And, other things like when you're sleeping, you're not properly positioned. The child is just dragging it. So are there things that, from as an experienced breastfeeding mother, are there things that women should do?
Yeah, I think every woman owes it to herself to keep fit as much as possible. So when you are breastfeeding, especially if you are a tall woman, when you sit down, you prop up your baby. So as to lift the baby up as much as possible. You are achieving two things. One, you don't have to bend. Because one of the myths I should have you mentioned was that breastfeeding is associated with pains and discomfort. People have cracked nipples, sore nipples, they have neck ache, back ache, and the rest of them. But when you prop up your baby to a very, very comfortable position, at least the neck pain thing can be addressed. And when you are breastfeeding, you don't allow the breast to just fall on the baby's mouth. Our mothers taught us then that when you do that, that's why you see some babies with dropping lips. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. Especially if you are an endowed mother and you just allow the breast to fall on the baby's lips. It puts pressure, it puts weight on the baby's mouth and the lips may end up, dropping. So you now lift your own breast. You actually use your hand to support your breast. So when you are doing that, you are protecting your own breast from not to sag extremely and not to also sag your baby's lips. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. And of course, there are bras that you can invest on that will help pack everything that even when you are 80 at least you still appear.
How about applying shea butter? Does it help? How about applying oil to help the appearance of the breast?
I'm not a specialist in that. So I don't want to say what I'm not.
Yeah, it's true anyway, because I've heard a lot of ladies recommend that one too. Anyway. Okay, now what of hygiene? Before Daniel asks you the next question, hygiene and breastfeeding.
Hygiene and breastfeeding.
Because I think this is something a lot of breastfeeding mothers struggle with. The fact that, breast milk after a while gives this smell. I have a lot of sisters around me that, so I've seen this happen. That after a while, when the breast is dripping in the bra, notice this very foul smell, and some women will leave that same bra on for like 1-2 days. The breast milk will be there, and they'll still take from that breast, give the child, So hygiene and breastfeeding, just make of it what you will, what you can.
I think every woman should know the basic things to do, and not just knowing, should do. As a breastfeeding mother, you are not supposed to wear your bra more than once. You wear it today, know how there'll be some leaks here and there, so you wash it. So that's why you invest in the right things. Invest in your bras, invest in your clothing for that moment. And of course, it makes a lot of sense, because the money you are saving from not buying formula, use it to prepare yourself better. Yeah. Change your underwears. Of course, you don't want to put a baby near you when you are also not smelling nice. So you are not helping your baby. You are not helping yourself. You are not helping people around you. So I think every woman has that responsibility. Invest in underwears, clean up, wash up, take your bath regularly. I don't think we should be saying that. Everybody should know that.
But it's true, yeah.
But we shouldn't assume. Take your bath regularly, averagely twice a day, morning and night. That's the list. You clean up everywhere, clean up the essential areas, change your underwears. Don't molest your family because you are breastfeeding.
Because you're breastfeeding, sure.
Women Radio 91.7, feel free to call us up this morning. I'd love to hear from a lot of mothers this morning to share with us their breastfeeding experiences. The first time they've had to breastfeed, what was the experience like, and how did this affect the bond? And are there any myths that you have heard about breastfeeding that you'd like to share with us on the radio? I would appreciate it if you get to call us up, or better still, send us a text or a WhatsApp message on 070-317-56537. And the studio line is open, 07000-917-917. Right here in the studio this morning, we have Florence Oladotun-Amoo speaking with us this morning on breastfeeding awareness.
The name says it all. Women Radio 91.7.
Still the big question here on Women Radio 91.7. Do well to be part of this conversation. Send us a text or a WhatsApp message, or put a call through to us on 07000-917-917. We're still talking about the breastfeeding awareness here on the radio. Now, the theme for the year is, breastfeeding is shared responsibility. So I want to find out, how can fathers, also play their role, or even build an attachment with the child, because the mother already have an exclusive opportunity with bonding with that child through breastfeeding, holding the child all the time, looking at the child in the eye. They have that opportunity to bond with the child. But for the fathers, how can they do it? But just before you do, I think we have a call. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning to you. Your name and where are you calling from?
Yes. My name is Jide from Lambert.
Jide from Lambert. Thank you for joining the show.
Yes. I want to appreciate everyone for today's topic.
Thank
and especially our madam in the house.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, I want to appreciate the fact she gave on the tagging. Nature will take its course, whatever it takes. So our women should understand that, and especially from the point of men should understand that whether the woman breastfeeds or not, nature will take its course. If you have that at the back of your mind, you wouldn't have to bother your woman over that. Because that's a challenge in the home, especially in this generation. Secondly, the point on connect between the child and the mother, it's a very important one. We are Africans, so we have to really understand the importance of the connect between the mother and the child. So I also want to add that women should be positively minded, especially when they are breastfeeding their children, because there's a communication. If you're positive within you, it translates to what the child takes in as well.
Okay, thank you.
You were asking a question about the men.
Yes.
How they connect yes. Men should always support their women at all times, especially when they are breastfeeding. be with them, help them out, and that will be fine.
Okay.
And concerning the connect again, can we promote family love?
Okay.
Does that also can relate from the men with the women? Because men breastfeed till death. When the man breastfeeds from and they look at themselves, is there a connect? And can that promote family love?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So he said quite a lot of things, and I think the first thing that he mentioned was to talk about the fact that I think in this generation, I think there's a reality TV show going on right now, and a particular lady was insulted because of and then that sparked a new conversation entirely, and to see that a lot of people do not even have an understanding of this issue as we speak. But he also spoke about the fact of how men can support, which actually is my next question. How can fathers build an attachment to their newborn?
Good question. Thank you, Mr. Jide, for your contribution. By the grace of God, I'm a marriage counselor. And when we are counseling intending couples, people who are about to marry, we let the men know that they have a big role to play bonding with their children. Yeah. And they start from the time conception takes place. They're not supposed to wait until the babies are born. So we tell them, once your wife is pregnant, begin to connect with your baby. Touch your wife's tummy. Feel your baby kick. Speak to your baby. Baby's here. They are spirit beings, so they're here. Speak to them. Pray with them. Prophesy over them. Declare what you want God to do in their lives. Beyond that, no matter how busy you are, please, men, find time to go to antenatal classes or antenatal sessions with your wives. Hear directly from the doctors. Don't just sit down at home or at work and wait for the report your wife is going to bring. You also have the opportunity to ask questions, to interact directly with the doctors. And of course, on the D-Day, if God helps you, plan to be by your wife's side when she's delivering.
Some men are going to fail. They
will resuscitate them if they faint. But it creates it makes a lot of difference. And of course, when your wife and the baby now get home, what is your own role?
Yeah.
You are not the one breastfeeding. We understand. Cuddle your baby, hold your baby, take part in cleaning up, in bathing. And I've seen young men who bathe their babies, and that's commendable. Some men will say, no, she's too tiny, I can't hold her. No, you have to start. Clean up, change for your baby. Yeah. So gradually that bonding, you are building it up. And of course, when it gets to the time of school runs, please don't leave it to the women alone. Take your children to school, pick them from school, attend their school events. That's the way to build bond. It's a progressive thing. Yeah. It's not something you wake up and, now you are bonded. Interestingly, as I was coming to your studio this morning, I was talking with a neighbor of mine, a man. I actually teased him that if I knew he had so much to offer, I would have invited him, to come with me. And I told him I was coming to WFM to talk about breastfeeding. I said, wow, I'm a beneficiary of that. That when his wife was pregnant, I'm sure he's listening to me now because I told him the time. He said when his wife was pregnant for their first child, he just knew that there is something about this breastfeeding thing. And they talked about it, and he encouraged his wife to breastfeed. The girl is 9 years now, according to him, and he was telling me that the girl stands out intellectually. The girl is brilliant, and the girl has not been paying visits to the hospital because she has a very, very good health. Yeah. Unlike the younger brother who didn't have such opportunity, and I rebuked her. I said, why did you rob the other child? The other child did not have much time breastfeeding, and so there are differences, So if a man can have that experience, that first-hand experience, I think is a challenge to all men. We have a role to play. Don't just leave it to your wives. Okay. You have a role to play, and it pays off.
Yeah. 070917917. You can call us up this morning to be part of this conversation. Share with us your breastfeeding experience as a man or as a woman, just being there. Let's talk about something which is not very popular, is the conversation of breastfeeding in public. What are your thoughts on your perspective to breastfeeding in public?
Oh, if we say breastfeeding is important, we're not saying we should throw caution to the wind. I personally, even as a woman, I don't take kindly to seeing women display their breasts all over the place in the name of breastfeeding. I don't appreciate it. There are ways to go around it. Okay. Let me explain. Okay. Even in our own days, I'm talking about 24 years ago, things are a lot better now. Yeah. There are nursing bras. Nursing bras are manufactured in a way that the entire thing is not showing. just the nipple, and the baby can just hold on to it, and that's all. Then when you are breastfeeding, your clothing should be right. You don't wear a dress that you have to entirely pull up the whole thing before you can breastfeed. That's a way. You go about with a shawl. You cover yourself. Look for a secluded area. Your baby is crying maybe in the church. For instance, in my church, we have what we call the nursing mother's corner. That's where all the women who are breastfeeding stay. So let them be showing themselves the breast. Not that they are sitting between men. I mean, in the congregation, in the sanctuary, and you are seeing all kinds of shapes and all that. So women are supposed to be discreet. I know men, an average man will not like his wife displaying. Even I don't like it as a woman. So women should be cautious. Women should give themselves some respect. Don't say because you are breastfeeding, you throw caution to the wind. Find a secluded place. Be discreet about it. Wrap yourself as much as possible, and it's fine.
There's a conversation around breastfeeding being stressful as an activity for ensuring that the child is also healthy. Was there any technique or method you adopted in ensuring that it didn't wear you out as a person?
I will not sit here and tell you that breastfeeding is not stressful. It is stressful, but like every good thing in life, there is a price to pay. What is the stress we're talking about? Most women have sore nipples, cracked nipples at the very early stage. The breasts are engorged. The baby is not sucking as much as the milk is being produced, so it's heavy. See you squeezing your face. So it's heavy. But over time, once the baby has established a rhythm, that ceases. And of course, when your baby starts bringing out teeth, he begins to sharpen his biting skills with your breast. So the babies will bite, but they are looking at. I said babies are intelligent. When they do that, they look at you. If you scream, oh, that hurts me, the baby pulls back because the baby also knows that, oh, I've not done something right. But beyond all this, how do you cope? Number one, especially for young mothers, get your schedule right. Let your schedule align with the schedule of your baby. What do I mean? Babies are supposed to be breastfed on demand. Yes. You don't time them. Okay. So when the baby cries for food, you give him or her food. So when your baby is asleep, try and catch some sleep. That's not the time to start washing, to start cleaning, to start cooking. And before you are done with all that, the baby wakes up and another round of breastfeeding continues. That's what weighs a lot of women down. So let your schedule line up with your baby's schedule as much as possible. Okay. Get helps. Fortunately, in Africa, we are communal in nature. I mean, know how, you have people around. You have your mother, your mother-in-law, you have your siblings, you have neighbors, you have church members. If you are a good person yourself, people will flock around you to assist you. And at this stage also, the men should also help. Let somebody be available to, at least, I'm talking about the very, very initial stage now. Let the woman have food to eat. And of course, breastfeeding is draining. Especially people who have multiple births. I can imagine having to breastfeed a set of twins or a set of triplets. It's not going to be easy. I mean, let's be truthful. But then, eat well so that you are fit. Okay. But then, there is a clause. Okay. Don't overfeed.
All right. Pause that thought quickly. Let's take this call. Okay. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Yes, good morning to you. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Good morning, Daniel. It's Adeswa.
Adeswa, thank you for joining us this morning. Adeswa, can you speak up, please?
All right. I'm calling from Dapo.
Thank you for joining us, Adeswa.
Yes, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Yes, ma'am. I just want to share my experience also. I had my daughter. When I gave birth to her, it was 7 months, and she was so small, and that was the first time. I don't have any experience. And so, I just want to talk about the breastfeeding because it really changed her. Within some months, she became big. I didn't give her any other thing, even water. I didn't give her water for almost a year. It was just the breastfeeding, and that was all. Okay. I tried to give her water, and I almost lost her. Because she started schooling, and as small as she was, I was afraid. Then my mom was with me. My mom was afraid that how will she come to take care of the child and something like this will happen. So I had to stop the water, nothing for like a year. She didn't drink water because of the way she was giving birth to. And when she was growing sick, she did not fall sick once. I don't even know when she goes sick because some people they start starting singing, running after the child, taking the child to the hospital. I don't even know. It's when I want to breastfeed her and the nipple is in her mouth, I will just feel warm and say, this child is not, and the people just come out like that. So I do not bother to start running around.
Thank you.
Very good. It's the best you can do for a child. And she's done. She does not force it. She's not at home now. She has gone to write to her head. A big girl. She does not force it.
All right.
She does not. She didn't even trouble at all. So I think
thank you.
Forget about studying. Leave studying to one side. Everything will start. You understand? Yes, everything will start one day. So let's take care of our baby.
Thank you.
Very good.
Yes.
Very, very good.
All right. Thank you very much, Adeswa, for calling. My last question would be, how can this promote family bonding? Like the whole family as a whole, from even if you already had like a child before and you're having another one, how does the breastfeeding experience affect the family bond?
I'm sorry to take you back.
Yes.
I want to finish up with the last question. I was saying that a woman needs to eat well.
Yes.
But at the same time, don't become obese. Because for some women, after breastfeeding, after the whole experience, they have to battle with weight loss.
Yes.
So try and balance things up. And most importantly, have the right attitude. Breastfeeding should not be seen as a burden. If you see it as a burden, if you see it as wala wulele, then that's when it will weigh you down. But see it as a privilege, have the right attitude towards it, and it gets better. Because you said the theme for this year is a shared responsibility, yes. I think I need to say this. Employers of labor should actually assist women to want to breastfeed. How would they do that? Maternity leave is very important. In fact, paternity leave is not out of place. Because if the men are also available, they can assist. So the woman can face what she has to face, and the man can do other things. So employers of labor, public sector, private sector, please, we're advocating that you help to promote, give the right platform, a conducive platform for people to be able to breastfeed. And of course, if you're a woman, you have to go back to work it out. Look for a daycare or a creche, maybe close to your place of work, where you can quickly dash during your break time to still breastfeed your baby. It's very important. So now back to the question of the family as a whole. One mistake a lot of women make, either deliberately or maybe they're not even aware of it, is when a new baby is born, the whole attention is on that new baby and every other person is neglected. The husband is more or less, the older children are. It's an intentional thing that every woman should do. You have a baby, but you don't neglect the other members of the family. Most times the immediate older child feels neglected because up until the time you had this new baby, that baby was the one close to you, but now you are, go away. The baby wants to touch, the child wants to touch the newborn. Hey, don't touch, and the baby is wondering, what's happening? This was my mother maybe 2 days ago. What's happening? So every woman should strike a balance. Keep your head together. It's possible, it's doable. Just keep your head together. Know that you can't sacrifice one for the other. Don't neglect your husband as much as possible. And of course, I'm sure the husbands too will be very understanding at this time. But more importantly, if you have older children, ensure that they are not put to the background just because there's a new baby in the house.
I want to say thank you so much for sharing from your word of experience with us this morning, and more importantly, for being part of this conversation. Would there be any final words you'd like to add to this convo?
Come again?
Would there be any final words you want to add to this conversation?
Thank God for this event, and thank God for what God has made available. Breastfeeding is what God has in his mind. The medical people will tell you that during pregnancy, that is when the process of milk production actually begins. So it's actually the work of God. It's actually the doing of the Lord. And whatever God does is for the benefit of mankind. So if God has put this in place, we will not be wise if we don't take advantage of it. So every woman in the house, please, I plead with you, do not rob your children of this godly opportunity of being breastfed. God bless you. God bless Nigeria.
God bless Nigeria. At 10 o'clock is Radio Doctor. And once again, thank you so much.
WFM 91.7.